Welcome to the Michael Singer podcast, presented by Sounds True, in partnership with Shanti Publications. For more information about Michael Singer's work, access to all prior episodes, and information about upcoming releases, we invite you to join us at michaelsingerpodcast.com.
Jai Gurudev, Jai Masters. So much of tradition, religions, belief structures, and even Western, not science, but Western teachings, Western history, Western great beings, taught what's called philosophy. Religious philosophy, different philosophies. What's the difference between philosophy and truth? Like great enlightened beings, they don't play with philosophy. Minds like to play with philosophy. What is the difference between philosophy and reality? Philosophy and truth. Philosophy is something your mind does. It puts together things and tries to explain why they are the way they are. And you have a philosophy of life, a philosophy of health, a philosophy of all religions, you have philosophy of all sorts of things. Philosophy is a very big subject in school. You take philosophy courses. Well, what's the difference between philosophy and truth? The difference is philosophy is of mind. Truth, real truth, is a direct experience. How can you experience philosophy? Well, we're going to use the example of yogic philosophy, which is something I never talk about. And I'm going to talk about it very simply. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, there developed a philosophy, so to speak, about reality, about creation, about God, about life, all of it, all packaged together into this philosophy, yogic philosophy. But where did it come from? Interestingly enough, it did not come from mind. It did not come from scholars sitting down and talking about things and studying them and trying to come up with theories and philosophies about them. It came from very, very great beings somehow. I don't know. I never look back with stories they tell how it happened. But imagine a first person that sat down. I don't know why they did it, but they sat down and all of a sudden they were enlightened. All of a sudden they realized that they were the one. This is how it happened. It has to happen this way. That they were the one that was looking at things. They were not what they were looking at. That's an experience. That's a reality. That's not a philosophy. You're not philosophizing that you're in there. You're in there. Everybody's in there. And the fact is that when you look at something, it's you looking at it. Well, it's very natural. Even your thoughts. It's you looking at your thoughts. It's you feeling your emotions. Well, all sorts of philosophies and scientific studies and so on are about what you're looking at. What is a thought? Where does it come from? What are your emotions? How can you deal with them? What if you have trouble with them? How can we help you? What is your body? Where did it come from? How does it take a single cell and turn into a whole body baby and then grow? How do these things happen? All right? And so they study them and study them and study them and try to do the best they can to follow that down. What happened thousands of years ago in India, where it came from, the foundation of the yogic teachings, is someone actually sat down and instead of asking, what am I looking at? What are these thoughts I'm looking at? What do I do about them? What are these emotions I'm having? What do I do about them? What is this body? What do I do about it? What is the world out there? People, relationships, all that stuff. Someone asked a very interesting question. Not what am I looking at? Who's looking? Who's aware that there are thoughts? Who's aware that there are emotions? And if I ask you, every one of you, if you know nothing about any philosophy, will say, I am. Are there thoughts? Yeah, how do you know? Because I hear them, I see them. Who hears them? Talking to who? That's where the foundation of yoga philosophy comes from, if you want to call it philosophy, all right? Is that someone asked the question, not what are my thoughts, who's in there experiencing the thoughts, not what are my emotions, who's experiencing them, not what are my eyes, not what is the piano, not what is the people, not what is the temple, not what is the cloud. Who is experiencing the fact that there's a cloud? And that became the beginning of the inner journey. And so instead of looking outward at what you're looking at, the question became, who's looking? And that led to meditation. That led to, okay, I'm looking, but this is how I teach it. It's easy. We're all experiencing it. I can look that I have thoughts, but they're rather distracting, if you haven't noticed. In fact, they're so distracting that we don't even know that we're distracted, because we're always distracted. By the way, what does distracted mean? It means you were doing something and something distracted you. So there are things that distract you from your thoughts. You don't understand. You're distracted by your thoughts, but you're not back there far enough to look at it that way. But if you're thinking and someone's making noise, yeah, you're distracting me. But if your thoughts are making noise, nothing in there says, it doesn't say anything. It's just aware that I'm aware and these thoughts are distracting me. You understand that difference? But it's one thing to be distracted from something. It's another to understand you're distracted all the time. So a great being who can meditate deep enough or has explored that question, who sees when I see, who hears when I hear, who is aware of the thoughts, there's only one way to find out. You cannot find out who is experiencing your thoughts by thinking. Scientists cannot find out who is back there being aware of the thoughts by studying the thoughts, because they left the center, they left the seat from which you are experiencing, and they went down to what you were experiencing. It's sort of like your reflection in the mirror isn't you. It can never be you. Doesn't matter what it looks like. And it can't know you. You can know it, but it can't know you. So your thoughts cannot know consciousness. They can think about consciousness, but those are thoughts, and the consciousness is looking at the thoughts that are thinking about consciousness. All right? Like I like a lot that, and I don't argue with anybody, believe me, I just stay here in the woods, right? That if you go ask a neuroscientist who's studying this sort of stuff, many of them will say that what consciousness is just the natural evolutionary result of very complex neural pathways, of the neurons connecting together so complicated that they become consciousness. Don't believe them, because it's not true. But the question becomes, how did they get there? Through the mind. They logically looked at this and that, and they tried this and experimented that and looked at the results, did all this stuff mentally looking out. You're not going to know consciousness by looking away from consciousness. You're only going to know by asking who's looking. And that's what yoga is. That's what the deep teachings are, is the study of the nature of self, the study of the nature of consciousness. Well, don't you have to think about it? If you think about it, you're not studying it. You're thinking about it. That's a totally different ballgame. And that's where meditation comes from. It's a natural thing. If you want to find out who's in there, you better not be thinking about it, or you're just finding out what your thoughts are. And you better not be looking out at the world and studying it. Well, to do that, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. We'll get to it later. We study a lot of things out there. But it isn't consciousness. It's consciousness being aware of what the mind figured out. Okay? So the question is, who studied consciousness itself? And is there such a thing? Or do we have to have a philosophy about it? But the answer is, I hope you're not going out there to find someone who studied consciousness. Why? Because you're it. Why would you go out there to have somebody else tell you who you are? No one can know consciousness more than you can. Why? Because you're conscious. They're looking at the mind. They're trying to figure out what I'm going to look at my mind to figure out what your consciousness is. That's ridiculous. Why not study what inside of you is aware that you're aware? And that is the entire process of deep spiritual evolution, of meditation, of yoga, Buddhism. All of them are exactly the same. The inner studies say you're not going to get there by thinking, but how do you stop thinking? And that's where it all gets very interesting, doesn't it? Okay? Because very few people, I won't say have ever stopped thinking. There are times that you stop thinking. There are times you stop thinking. You turn the corner. You're driving, you're thinking about your troubles, that this is happening, what does somebody mean? The thoughts are, you turn the corner and the sunset blows you away. It just catches your attention completely to where there are no thoughts. There's just the experience of the awesomeness of what you're looking at. And when you have that experience, you tell somebody, it touched me to the depth of my being. I felt like I was in the presence of God. People say things like that, right? You know how else they say it? When someone who they really, really, really love a lot hasn't been around for a while, and then they come and surprise you and hug you, and you go bye-bye. Ever gone bye-bye? Okay, guess what? When you're bye-bye, you don't know you're bye-bye. Not till you come back. I went bye-bye. There's such beautiful words. I melted in her arms. Ever melt? That means you're not thinking. There are no thoughts. There's just this amazing experience of being. And you wouldn't trade it for anything. If you could stay there, you would stay there. That's why people do psychedelic drugs to try and stay there. But no one's ever stayed there that way. All right? It's terrible to say, but if there was a button over there and you could push it and be there, your finger would stay on that button. Because there's no higher experience in your life. Every other thing you're trying to experience is people proud of you. Oh, I had a moment. I felt so good. They were clapping. Good. You tried to touch that spot, but you don't stay there. You've never stayed there. Guess what? Not only can you stay there, it is who you are. When you sit there and say, it touched the depth of my being, that's because at that moment you cease to be distracted by your thoughts. And it's not an emotion. It's not an emotion. It's basically there's quiet, and the self, the consciousness, is experiencing its nature. It's experiencing the nature of self. So when the yogis started to study the inner state, well, it just ask the question, who's in there? Who's aware? Who knows? You better go in there to find out. You're not going to go out here to find out. All that's doing is distracting you away from yourself. So that's a key, by the way. Very few people teach that distraction is a very spiritual word. It's an extremely important spiritual word. If you don't understand distraction, you don't understand anything about spirituality. Why? Because you're being distracted from the seat of self. You're being distracted from the consciousness by the object of consciousness. Can you understand that? Right? Consciousness is an object. Well, what is looking at? What is hearing? What is thinking? Whatever is going on in front of consciousness. I want you to feel this location. I always point back here. People are like, why you point back there? Because that's where you are. You're back here looking out. You are back here looking down. What do you see? First, you see your thoughts. Then you see your emotions. Then you see the world, don't you? And that's the fall from the garden. Hit your head each step. Boom, boom, boom. Now you're out here. And what do they say in the Bible of the fall from the garden? Well, you were in ecstasy. You were totally free. The garden is painted as you live in that state. You live in a state of complete, total, ecstatic well-being, but you fell from the garden. And what happened when you fell from the garden? I love that line, all right? It sits there and says, because you fell from the garden, now you must work by the sweat of your brow to be okay. That is so deep. It's the truth. Don't you work by the sweat of your brow to be okay? Don't you try to have relationships that are meaningful to you? Don't you try to look a certain way? Don't you try to have people like you? Don't you try to have money? Work hard at it, don't you? Don't you think all the time how to be okay? Do you not try to figure out how to make decisions how to be okay? Every single thing you're doing is try to be okay. You want to know why? Because you're not okay. Why else would you be spending all this time, your whole life? What toy do you want? What friend do you want? How do people want to talk to you? How do you want to be treated? What do you want to look like? Do you want to get old? Everything, all the time. How do I be okay? And if you treat me right, okay, then you stay with me because it makes me be okay. And you don't anymore, go away. In other words, you're admitting, you don't realize, you're admitting, I'm not okay. And guess what your society tells you? You're not. You better buy Dial or you'll smell. You better get a good job. You better get the corner office. You better be respected. You better get all kinds of alphabetic letters after your name. You better do all kinds of stuff to try to be okay. You better have children. You better have the children be good. You better get it together, people. Why? Because you're not okay. And things can happen out there that make you be better. They do. You know that? You know that. Things can happen outside that when they come in, you feel better. Yes or no? But can things happen outside make you feel worse? Can you worry that things might happen outside that make you feel worse? In other words, you're not okay. Wake up. But the truth of the matter is you're not only okay, you're the most beautiful thing I've walked the face of the earth, but you're distracted from yourself. That's what's happening. The self, the consciousness, when they say the self, they're talking about the core of your being, your soul. the core of your being, the essence of your being. The essence of your being is consciousness. The essence of your being is not anything you're looking at. It's the one who's looking. It's the highest thing there is, you. Okay? Let's put it this way. How do I say that? All right. Take away your car. Are you still there? Okay, take away your house. You still there? Do you like the emotions that you're feeling because you took away your house? No. Take away the emotions. You still there? Are you aware? Oh my God, I was feeling terrible. All of a sudden I don't. I don't know why. You're still there, aren't you? Take away anything and everything. Take away your son, your daughter, your family, your husband, your wife. Oh my God, he said that. Okay? Your religion, your church, your synagogue. Take it all away. Are you aware it's gone? Are you aware it's gone? Okay, I'll take you away. Are you there? Nothing is there. Take away consciousness. There is nothing. Nothing has any meaning. Nothing exists, or if it exists, you don't know. Consciousness is the core of your being. It is the essence of all meaning. Nothing has meaning without consciousness. How do you like that? Okay? I'll give you $700 billion, but you will not be aware that it exists. You feel good? Right? So unless consciousness is present, falling on the object of consciousness, there is no meaning to anything. Consciousness is the core of meaning. It's the essence of your being. When they say soul, they're talking about you. They're talking about the consciousness. That's the essence of your being. And the fall from the garden, because you fell from the seat of consciousness, who you are, a conscious being, into an object of consciousness. Your thoughts, your emotions, your body, and what comes in through your senses. And it doesn't always feel good. And therefore, now you must work with sweat of your brow to be okay. It's not just going to happen by itself. But what's really funny is, not only can it happen by itself, it is there at all times. What did Christ say? I'm a nice Jewish yogi, or I'm teaching you yoga. But I love that I can quote Christ, because the teachings are yoga. They're the essence. What he taught was the essence of all the deep teachings. So what did he say? Where did he say the kingdom was? Oh, within you. Guess where it is? Within you. But within you. Not within your thoughts, not within your beliefs, not within your emotions, not within your body. It's within you. That's where the kingdom is. And that's where you fell from. So basically, consciousness, which we'll get further into consciousness, but consciousness is the essence of your being. So to study consciousness with the mind is fine. There's nothing wrong with anything. It's a very nice practice. Keep yourself busy. It's wonderful. The yogi did what? The great masters sat down in a cave. Don't do that. You don't need to do that. They did it for you, okay? They sat down in a cave, renounced everything. What's this renunciation thing? It's because they don't want to be distracted. Is that the only way? Are you supposed to renounce? No, you're not. We'll get into that. Renunciation says, I am being distracted by things, therefore I must avoid them. The highest spiritual state says, I am not distracted by things, therefore I don't need to avoid anything, because I'm not distracted by it. I can live in New York, the midst of all the turmoil, exactly the same as I live in the woods or a cave. Now you're there. You understand that? That's a very great being, isn't it? Okay? So the key is they practice the traditional practices, which Zen teaches and people teach them, is renounce. You're so caught up in it, you can't just not be distracted by it. So the only thing you can do is stay away from it. So basically, they practice these practices. Good, mazel tov. I'm glad they did it. All right? And so what happened is, by leaving the world and not being distracted by the outside world, and then sitting in a cave somewheres or whatever, a hut, and then closing your eyes so the stuff's not coming in, then you don't get distracted by the outside world. There's nothing drawing you out. Then learn techniques, breathing, mantra, right? Well, what's mantra? I'm not distracted by the world because there's nothing out there, but I'm distracted by my thoughts. Well, okay, it's hard to stop the thoughts. So why don't we just make them very simple? Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Shiva Hom, Shiva Hom, Aham Brahmasmi. I like that one. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi. Well, what if that's what the mind says all the time? Not very distracting. Okay, but that's the whole idea, is instead of thinking about this or that or thing, which you didn't get involved in, but you still think about it, you simplify the whole thing going on in the mind. You purify the mind, if you will, so it's not thinking about all the, and by the way, I'm not telling you to do these things. We're just talking about where yogic philosophy came from. Do you understand that? And the difference between experience and philosophy. So you're in there and you're working on it. You're working on quieting the mind you can use mantra, you can breathing, it's the breathing quiets down the mind. It does. These things do. They're great techniques. So now the senses are not distracting you. The mind is not distracting you. And all of a sudden, if you're not distracted, not if you used will, right? That's still an act of presence, of separation. But because you're not distracted by the outside world, by the senses, you're not distracted by the emotions or the thoughts, you've quieted it down enough to where the consciousness is not pulled down into it. Not that you managed to put it back up. You didn't try to force yourself back up to a higher state. This is the real deep, deep teachings. You cease to be distracted by being pulled down by the mind, the emotions, right? Baba once wrote to his people, he used to write, "Oh, loved ones, Baba found out you can enter samadhi, a complete state of merger, the highest state of consciousness, right? And the mind doesn't have to stop." Now, who can understand that? You can, because I'm telling you, it's because it distracts you that it has to stop. What if it doesn't distract you? Right? There are all kinds of things in the world don't distract you. There's trees going by, there's white lines, there's clouds, there's weather, there's people you don't know. 99% of every single, higher by the way, 99% of every single thing that comes through your senses does not distract you. You're already distracted enough by that 1%. You're sitting in a crowd of 2,000 people trying to look for your girlfriend or boyfriend. You don't see the 2,000 people, they don't distract you one iota. All right? So you get to a state, he was in a state where you're high enough to where if the mind is, it's not neurotic, right? But if the mind's thoughts are being created, they don't pull you down. You don't get distracted by them. So right now what we've said is you've managed to withdraw, and so the world, the outside senses don't distract you. Now you've worked on yourself enough, deep meditation, techniques, mantra, this, that, whatever, and now the mind is pure enough, quiet enough to where it's not distracting you. What happens? The consciousness is so beautiful. You listen to me. What happens is the most natural thing in the whole world. I'm not distracted. Therefore, I'm in consciousness. What does that mean? I'm me. It's called self-realization. I realize myself as consciousness. I don't think I'm consciousness because that's a thought. Nothing is pulling me out. Therefore, I'm in. And that's where the great ones went. That's called self-realization. Okay? Well, what does that mean? All right, you guys like to think of it as witness consciousness. Along the way, you have this stage where I'm here and I notice my thoughts. Isn't that great? It's nice. It's a stage along the way. Okay? If you go to New York, you made it about to Georgia or South Carolina. Okay? So now you're here and you notice you have an erotic mind. That's wonderful. Why? At least now you know you have one, right? And you know you're distracted by it. That's a very important step along the way. The gray ones didn't stop there because you reach that state of noticing over time. It has to mature like fruit. It's beautiful. Over time, you notice at first you're freaked out how neurotic your mind is and how much trouble it causes you and everybody else. And then because you see it and you start realizing, I'm not it. That's the highest psychological technique. Find out you're not in. Stop watching the stupid thing. If you come to me as a psychiatrist, a therapist, oh my God, you don't understand. I got divorced 5 years ago. It still bothers me. I still keep thinking about him or her. And my mind thinks, so the psychiatrist should say to you, oh, that's your problem? Well, stop it. If you stop it, you won't have a problem. He's gone. He's not in your life anymore. Why are you doing this? We should be able to say, oh, thank you. All right. But you sit there and say, I don't know how to. Because it's distracting you. Because you care enough about it. It caused enough problems for you that you kept your problems. And you kept the emotion. You kept the thoughts. And so now your mind keeps going back to those because that's what you stored in there. And so it distracts your consciousness and you're not at peace. You don't feel joy. You don't feel love and meaning. So what if you managed to let go of all that stuff? So the mind is pure enough, the emotions are pure enough, not pure, they don't swear, just they're not full with the stuff you stored in there. And so now they don't distract you. So now the outside world, the sense are not distracting you, your mind and emotion not distracting you, then you're not distracted. What does that mean? Who got distracted? While you're distracted, you don't know who got distracted because you're distracted. Can you hear me? Are you listening to me? We're going very deep with an understanding of what's going on, of who you are. If you're not distracted by who you're not, then you remain who you are. even if you've never been there before. People can have a deep meditation for 1 minute, and their entire life's changed. It's not rare at all. Just touch it once, and all of a sudden, OMG, oh my God, that's who I am. It's so real. It's so deep. It cuts through everything. No philosophy. That's what I'm trying to talk about. That's not philosophy. When somebody says, no, you didn't go there. Thank you. Because you did. How do you know? Write a book. No. Prove it. No. It's just basically, I experienced that. Now, I like that, but I don't want it to be in the past tense. I love you. It's so beautiful. I want you to live there. Even if you live in New York, and even if you go to work, even if you have children, even if you get married, even if you get fired, even if you don't have money, if you do, I want you always to be there, where in the most beautiful place that exists in the universe, you. But you are distracted by. Let's do that real quickly. What are you distracted by and why? I do this all the time, but I have to, I'm sorry. Any one of you ever had an experience in your life that you didn't like? Did you enjoy experiencing it? No. Did you try to not experience it? Either outside, apologize. I'm leaving if you don't say you're sorry. I can't handle this. Say you're sorry and mean it. Yes? No? We never did that? Okay. So you try to change the outside. So it didn't happen. I don't have to deal with it because I couldn't handle it. But if you can't do that, then what do you do inside when it doesn't feel good? I know what you do. You know who else knew what you do? Freud. You suppress it. You push it away. Right? Let's get psychology, foundational psychology into yoga, right? Are you in there? Check. Are the things that come in you don't like? Check. Do you push them away? Do you have hands in there that can push away thoughts and feelings that you don't want to have? That's what, like, I love Freud. He taught, obviously, great teachings, right? The question is, if I talk to Sigmund, I ask him, Sigmund, yes, there's suppression. Yes, there's repression. Yes, there's denial. All of that is pushing it away. What are you suppressing? What are you denying? Things I don't like. Did you suppress the most wonderful experience you ever had? No. I clung to it, Buddhist, okay? But otherwise, I pushed it away. Who did? Who did? The ego. No, the ego is something you built in your mind to try to live within yourself. It's a thought pattern. Who did all this? The self is doing all this. The consciousness is the one that has the power in there to push things away. And so when they came in and you didn't like it, we talk about how that happens, but you didn't like the experience, so you push it away. What does that do? Does it go away because you push it away? Is that what Freud taught? Just go suppress the things, they'll go away. They'll just dissipate. Just like pollution. Let the factories put all the stuff out. There's plenty of air. It won't do anything. It'll dissipate. They used to think that. Okay? Well, inside, where do you think stuff goes when you push away? You know, you just won't pay attention. It doesn't have to be some big thing either. You're sitting there talking to somebody, a friend, and they say something that didn't feel good. Maybe you misunderstood them. Maybe you didn't. Whatever it is, it hits you. It happens, doesn't it? Okay, it hits you. I guarantee you, next time you see that person, you will not feel the same as if they hadn't said that. You understand that? Why? Because you stored it inside. No, I dealt with it. I accepted it. Yeah, sure. The fact that there's even an it means you made something out of it. It's not like the breeze or the wind or the leaf that fell by or the car that drove by. It was what she said, and I can handle it. I'll handle it. I have to forgive. Right? Have to forgive what? That which you didn't forgive. Like, is forgiveness of the wonderful thing? It is something you must practice, and it's a stage along the way. Let me tell you something. If you let go as it happens, there's nothing to forgive. Forgiveness means you didn't let it go, but I'm willing to forgive you anyways. You're already judged. It's already late. But do it. I'm not saying that. You see the difference? Do you forgive the white lines for being on the road? But there's 80 billion things that come in. You don't have to forgive them. But you do have to forgive somebody who hurt you because you held on to it. Otherwise, if you're a great being, truly great being, no matter what comes in, it passes through. Doesn't mean you don't deal with it. It just passes through. There's nothing to forgive. It's just basically reality came, it went, it passed through me. So all I can do is talk around it. You understand that? So meantime, you're in there and you shoved all this stuff down inside of you, and you do it every single day of your life, not just big things, dramatic things. Every day of your life, there are things that happen that you don't like, and you store them. You push them away They get stored in there. They do not go away, period. You dream about them, don't you? Don't you have something bad happen, something happen that bothers you? You have dreams about it. You talk to people about it a week later. You remember it 3 years later. If somebody says the name of the person, even though it's not the person they're talking about, it comes back up. Why? Because you stored it in there. If you don't like it and you can't handle it and you push it away, it gets stored inside of you. Therefore, something very important to you got stored. Something hurt you. It wasn't the same as anything else, like the cloud or the weather or this or that. Although the weather can do it. It's your birthday, you're 6 years old, you have your party outside, and it's raining. You remember that? You remember what you felt like when you're 60. Someone will say, oh, your granddaughter, let's have the party outside. No, you don't have the party outside. I guarantee you, I've done that. You don't have the party outside. What's the matter with you? One stupid experience, one day in your life, and you built your whole world on top of it. Don't think it's rational. It's not rational. It's ridiculous. All right? So because you couldn't handle it, you did something very interesting. You took the worst experience you ever had in your life and decided to keep them. You made a storehouse, didn't you? That's what psychologists use you. They said you shoved it somewhere. Oh, give it a name, subconscious. Why is it subconscious? Because you don't want to come into the conscious. Therefore, it's subconscious. See how simple it is? It's not complicated. A great being once taught, and I see it completely, that there is no such thing as a subconscious. There is only mind. You're the one who took part of what came in and shoved it aside as opposed to something else, and therefore it's stored in a place you won't let it come up. You don't want to look there. I'm not looking over there. So it's subconscious. What if you look there? It's not subconscious anymore. A great being does not have a subconscious mind. They have mind. Can you understand what I'm telling you? Good, good, good. This is deep. So basically, that's why the mind is so distracting. Because what you stored in there was very distracting. It was the things that distracted you the most. And so they're trying to finish their journey through the universe, but you won't let them. You keep pushing them away, subconsciously or consciously. So if anything touches them, it distracts you to pieces. If you were driving a 1967, I'm a little old, you probably don't know anything about that, a 1995 car of a certain kind and got in a car accident, and you're driving down the road in Germany 5 years later and you see a car like that, your heart skips a beat. You know, right away, it comes right back up. Didn't come back in me, won't come back in you, because you stored the experience. And don't think that's natural. It is natural to have a memory. But your mind is brilliant. It's just like a computer. It has the ability to store things and bring them back. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact you didn't let it get back there to normal memory. You suppressed it. You pushed it away. So now it's what yogis call, again, with yoga philosophy, they call that thing that's stuck in there a samskara. That's thousands and thousands of years old, those words, ancient Sanskrit. Why? Because they were in there studying and they saw it. They saw what I'm talking to you about way before Freud, way before any of this stuff, thousands of years before. All right? Of course they did, because they went inside and they saw what was going on in there, not by studying outside. Freud, most of what Freud came up with the id, ego, and superego, and again, I love Freud, the id, ego, and superego, he did by studying people outside. He studied institutionalized people, and you get to see extremes, and he saw these patterns, thought patterns that were like the body expressing itself, the id, the animal aspect, and the superego. Society told you how to be, so you have thought patterns like that. And the ego, that which tries to live in there and forms a self-concept about itself that can live with the id and ego and the society. All of it was by studying outside. He came up with these great theories, which are true and they're real, okay? The yogi says, yeah, I got those, but I'm not it. I've noticed that thing you called the superego in there. I noticed it. I'm not it. I noticed the ego. Ever notice you have an ego? You ever defend yourself? Ever care about what people think about you? Ever say something stupid and then think about it for the next 4 days? You got an ego. That's called a self-concept. Something you want to think of yourself as, or something you don't want to think of yourself as. And you built a mental concept in there about a you that you want to be and a you don't want to be. And it gets hit, doesn't it? All the time. It gets hit all the time. It's so sensitive. It's absurd. So you're in there watching this. I'm glad Sigmund figured it out by studying and writing down notes and analyzing and all that stuff. That's wonderful. He was right. He's right. The yogi watches it from the other side, from behind. And then it pulls it in. And then you learn to not have it pull you in. You learn how to be comfortable even if your ego's not. In other words, it doesn't distract it. I told you the key word is distraction, isn't it? It doesn't distract you. What if you say something really stupid and everybody laughs at you and you laugh with them and that's the end of it? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Who said you can't do that? Who said you can't learn to do that? It's just layers and layers of stuff. If you go deep enough inside, and again, I'm going back to what the yogis did. So they renounce the outside, so the senses are not disturbing and distracting them. Then they learn to work with the mind through mantra and breathing and all different kinds of techniques, to where really what they learn to do is to let go of any scars they stored in there from the past, and eventually nothing in there is distracting the consciousness. That's the main point I want to say. You didn't do anything to get back to consciousness. You stopped leaving. It stopped pulling you out. If you take a hot air balloon, all right, a helium balloon, a hot air balloon, okay, and you tie it to the ground, it's tethered to the ground, it bounces up. It does. They don't tie it so tight. It bounces up a little bit, but it's not going up. Well, let's put more helium in it. It's not going to go up because it's tethered. Well, how do I get it to go up? Cut the tethers. Then what do I do? Nothing. If you cut the tethers, it goes up. That's its nature. If you stop being distracted, you end up in the seat of the one that was always there being distracted. And that seat is very different than anything you imagine. So the yogis went back there and ended up experiencing the seat of consciousness, not thinking about it, being in it. And they all found the same thing, that when they went back beyond witness consciousness. Why is it beyond? Because witness consciousness, you're still looking at you. So you're taught to watch your thoughts, watch your breath, watch your emotions. Don't touch them, just watch them. Objective observation, Krishnamurti called it. Yes, you're objective, but you're still observing something. It's still catching your attention. What happens when it no longer catches your attention? You realize that you are always realized. You are always back there, but you're being pulled down. And then instead of just watching your thoughts and emotions, when they go deep enough, they all found the same thing, which is my consciousness was like a drop of water studying me. When it no longer did that, it fell back into the ocean. And every single drop of consciousness is of the same nature, the same thing. It's the same ocean. Just like every ray from the sun that falls on the earth, they fall on different places, every single ray, but it's all the same, isn't it? It's all the sun projecting itself. And I don't like words like universal consciousness. I was a 60s guy that used to talk about expanding consciousness. When I went deep enough over the years, I would never use the word expanding consciousness. Stop contracting consciousness. Consciousness is already the full ocean. You are enlightened right now. You are seated in what you call God, in the oneness of the whole universe. That's who you are. But you're paying attention to your stupid little thoughts and your stupid little emotion. They are stupid. You understand that? I'm sorry to tell you don't like that, do you? No, I should respect my thoughts and emotions. Give me a break. You're sitting on a little planet, middle of nowhere. I always teach you this. 1.3 million Earths fit inside the sun. How much room do you take up? On the Earth. Not to mention that 1.3 million Earths fit inside the sun, and the sun is one of 300 billion stars in one galaxy, and there are trillions of galaxies, and you care about your stupid thoughts? Don't they seem rather stupid if you look at it that way? Right? Oh, I have a zit on my chin. I had to... Give me a break. I spilled some ketchup on my pants and I'm embarrassed. I have to watch and go back to work, but I don't have time to change. These are very important thoughts in the midst of the reality of the universe. So I get to call them stupid. Fair enough? The fact that you're aware of them, they're not important. Who's aware of them is the whole universe. So it's like the ray from the sun fell on something. I'm watching because it lit it up, lit that thing up. Oh my God, look, it's red. Look, it's changing to blue. Look, what's the matter with you? It's one ray from the whole thing, and there's this beautiful, beautiful sun emanating all of that. You don't even know anything about it. You don't look at it. You don't care about it. You only care about what is shining on your thoughts, your emotions. That's called being distracted, isn't it? And why am I so distracted by my thoughts and emotions? I told you. Because you stored, if you store every single thing that bothered you inside your whole life, and you have, Freud said, 1 year old, 2 years, blankie, every mommy, everything. If you stored every single thing that bothered you, disturbed you your entire life inside, what's it going to be like in there? Disturbed. Is it not disturbed in there? Unless you work hard as you could be to make it not be? That's why. So when they went deep inside, they were able to get beyond the senses. They were able to get beyond thoughts and emotions. And so now they're not distracted. How do they do that? You cleanse. It's called cleansing. Now you understand all the teachings. What does cleansing mean? Cleansing means I stored garbage inside of me. I'm going to let it go. Ooh, he said it. You're not going up in a hot air balloon when it's tethered. You think about it all you want. You study it all you want. Come up with scientific formulas, anything you want. But you ain't going up. That's the difference. I have a philosophy about how to go up. You have to do this and do that and do that, right? Well, me, I'm just going to cut the tethers and we'll go up. That's an experience and philosophy. So until you let go of this stuff, people ask me all the time, I have some big stuff down there. A lot of it, don't we? You have little stuff happen every day, then you have stuff happen the next year and then a week, and then you get the real stuff. So basically, you got stuff down there. Do I have to go down there and find it and take it out and understand where it came from and analyze it and go apologize to people I hurt when I was 5, when I'm 55? Do I have to do that? Of course you don't have to do that. If you have to do that, then you have to do that. But of course you don't have to do that. Just let it go. What do you mean? It's over. The people are dead. You are bothered by people that are dead, aren't you? What Uncle George did when this and that, your sister got the bicycle, you wanted the color of it. Like, what are you doing? Accepting that behavior of being bothered by something that's not even happening. But it did, so what? It's not anymore happening. Why are you tolerating that something's bothering you that happened 20 years ago and it's not happening anymore? Is anybody listening? So they learned to let it go. They made that the motive. I can't explore consciousness while I'm being distracted by what I stored in here. Make sense? And so you learn to let it go. You let it go. If it comes up, you let it go. I know you don't know how to do it, but now we're talking about where the deep teachings came from. So they let it go. So now because they let it go, what happens when you let it go? If it was stored with pain, it's coming back with pain. Do you understand that? Somebody once asked me, is there some way that it can be stored with pain and not come back with pain? It has its nature. You store it with pain, and it comes back with the pain, doesn't it? If you did something when you were in 4th grade, you hurt somebody, you did something stupid, right? If I talk about it, it would embarrass you. If you saw that person when you went back to some high school reunion, you're going to feel embarrassment. It's not that it didn't happen, it happened. But why'd you store it? Why'd you have to store it? Because I couldn't handle it when it happened when I was 10 years old, and I can't handle it when it comes back up when I'm 50 years old. Because it feels the same. It feels embarrassing. It feels painful. It feels scary. Growth spiritually means, okay, I was little. I'm not evolved as I am now. I couldn't handle it then. I can handle it now. I can handle it now. Not only can I will, because I ain't keeping that thing in there, because it keeps distracting me, either subconsciously or consciously. You know you live like that. You know you're scared of yourself. Are you scared that things can happen that freak you out, remind you from the past, and you don't want to face that stuff? So cleansing means you understand that stuff's got to come up for you to be free. You have to go down there and find it. You have to go down there and get involved in it, unless you have to. That's your business, all right? But realistically, what if you let it come up? What if you let it come up? I always compare it with childbirth, okay? Women, that's a painful thing. They go back for seconds and thirds. Why? Because the result is worth the pain. Athletes kill themselves practicing for the Olympics, for this and that. No pain, no gain, weightlifting, all kinds of stuff, right? Well, why is it not the same here? Why are you a baby inside? Why do you sit there and say, I don't want this stuff inside? You want that stuff inside of you, distracting you so you can't know who you are? It's drawing you away from yourself, and you built an ego so you can protect yourself. But you're not the ego, you know that. Who wants to live like that? You're a very great being, but you're being distracted by that stuff because, like I said, why that stuff? Because that's the stuff you couldn't handle, therefore you stored it, therefore it's the most sensitive thing in your entire life. So basically, you let go. You learn to let go. So we're now sitting in the cave. We're doing our thing. Not you. I don't know what you're doing it, but they did it thousands and thousands of years ago. And now they've let go of their stuff. They just let go. As it came up, they let go. The more you let go, the less you're distracted. The less you're distracted, the more consciousness naturally sits within what's called the seat of self. You become established in the seat of self. Is that something I did? No, it's something you didn't do. I told you, it is not about going back to God. It's about not leaving. Your consciousness is already there. It always has been, always will be. But you are distracted. Your consciousness is pulled down into you, into this tiny little thing. Oh, it's so funny. Isn't it funny? Come on. All right. And so you're distracted. Well, you learn to cleanse so that you're not distracted. Like I said, when you're not distracted, you find yourself being at peace, sitting in the seat of consciousness, but still, you're still here. You're still individual. They talk about non-dual. You're still dual. It's still consciousness and form, thoughts, emotion, anything like that. But you're not pulled down into them. It's called becoming established in the seat of self. You don't have to do anything. You're there. When you let go enough, once you start, I'll share. First, your fight is to get back there, to let go and go through as you need to. Eventually, when you are back and you're naturally not being disturbed, you will feel the energy pulling you up, not pulling you down. The same energy that's pulling you down into distraction, all of a sudden there's an energy pulling you up. There's an upward pull, just like if you cut the tethers, the hot air balloon goes up naturally, all right? But you won't, it takes a great being to let go, because now Christ said you must die to be reborn. There's the teaching. Now you're not letting go of your thoughts. Now you're not letting go of your emotions. You're letting go of your sense of individuality. You were this little drop of consciousness, and you're being pulled back to your core, to the source of consciousness. How that everything has a source. What's the source of consciousness? Oh my God. That's like sacred words to even say that. Consciousness has a source, and they're not going to find it by looking at the mind. Now, do you see why I say that? That's their philosophy. Now we're talking about experience, direct experience of what consciousness is, because you're it. And it starts to pull you back, and you have to let go. Eventually, you let go. You've been comfortable enough. It's beautiful enough. And perfect example is a chapter in Autobiography of Yogi, Yogananda's book, which is called My Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. He said when the first time he went back there, he merged with the universe. Every star was him. Every galaxy was him. He was expanding at the speed of light in all directions at once. The entire universe was his body. All right? That's a state of samadhi. It's a state of oneness, of merger. Yoga means merger, means union. The individual Atman merges with Paramatman. You hear all these words. That's what they found. It's not a philosophy. It's a direct experience. And it's not a direct experience somebody else had. It's a direct experience that you're capable of having. Everybody's capable of having it. Why? Just like every ray leaves the sun. They just have to look in the opposite direction. All of a sudden you're looking up instead of looking down. And so basically, that's who you are. That is what's going on. And that is what is the core of the deep teachings. And of course, yoga was the foundation, and then Buddhism came off of that, and all sorts of traditions came off of the deep teachings. And Sufism, in the Islamic tradition, Sufism, same teachings, same things. They have different flavors. One system says you have to go renounce Zen. It's always so strict, right? You have to stop the mind, stop this, don't do this, don't touch that, don't do anything. And then there's this book in yogic philosophy. You ever heard of Patanjali Yoga Sutras? What did it say? That's supposed to be the foundation of the yogic teachings. It was a 500 BC or something. It was written. What did he say? He said, your first stage of getting back there is pratyahara. Well, that's a big word. What does that mean? It means withdraw from your senses. Oh, I thought we just talked about that. Mm-hmm. The ability to withdraw from your senses, so you're not distracted by your senses. And second, dharana. What is dharana? Meditation? No, it's not meditation. It's the ability, now that you have withdrawn from your senses and your consciousness is inside, to one pointedly focus on one thing. So your mind's not wandering. Nothing's pulling you away from the focus that you're on, right? You made a one pointed focus. Is dharana. Not meditation. He makes a big distinction. That's just the ability to one pointedly focus the mind and the inner state on one point, so it's not jumping all over the place. Like, it's just there. Then what? Then dhyan. Dhyan is meditation. What is that? Take that one pointed focus and focus it on consciousness itself. Let it come back to the seat of consciousness. And that is meditation. That is yoga. See, it seems we talked about that all night, didn't we? And that neat, it's not so complicated, is it? But the important difference I'm making is it's not a philosophy. So because you are consciousness, you are the greatest thing ever walked the face of the earth. You're literally God descended. The problem, you descended a little too far. You came too close. You started identifying with what you were looking at. You identify with your body. You don't identify with your body, you identify with your car. You identify with your husband. You identify with your wife. You identify with your children. You identify with your job. You identify with everything. You identify with your clothes. I can't believe you're wearing that. It doesn't match. It does so. All right? We got so close. That's the fall from the garden, right? That we are so close to it that we said we're it. I am this. No, you're not. You're aware of this. So if you work your way back, every one of you is capable of the deepest and highest states. And it's not about leaving your family. It's not about not having children. It's not about not having money. It's not about going to India. It's not about climbing Himalayas. They're all fine. It's, yes, okay, great things can happen. All right? It's about ceasing to be distracted by that which you're not, which is your thoughts. People say, but which thoughts are me? None. If you're in there noticing them, they ain't you. If I'm looking at something, I'm looking. But in the meantime, nicer thoughts are easier to let go of than the not nice, tamasic and rajasic, all that kind of stuff. You heard all the words. That's how they teach you all the philosophies, so that you're willing to work on letting go. But, if your thoughts were totally pure, you say, I have pure thoughts. I have the purest thoughts in the whole world. No one has ever had thoughts as pure as mine. You ain't going nowheres except into your thoughts. That's called spiritual ego. But by understanding that you are the one distracted by all thoughts, any thoughts, and by emotions, and by your body senses and stuff, and by the world for sure. How do you work your way out? It's really very simple. First, you have to want out. But want out doesn't mean you're not married, doesn't mean you'll take care of the children. It has nothing to do with your behavior in the outside world. It's the entire Bhagavad Gita is about. You're in the world, you're doing your thing, but you're not. Okay, that's the ultimate of you're in the world, but not of it. You ain't even close to of it. You're literally God descended playing in his universe, and you're aware of it every single second. Oh my God. Imagine that. That is your state of being. There are great masters. Mayor Baba was there. There are great masters that at all times, that is who they are. But they're still interacting with life. They're still doing things. But it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do. It has to do with, are you aware of who you are? So I hope this helps. But the main point of this talk was realization is not a philosophy. You have to defend it. You're it. Jagged.
You've been listening to the Michael Singer Podcast, produced by Sounds True in partnership with Shanti Publications. For more information on Michael's body of work and all back episodes, please join us at michaelsingerpodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening. Sounds True, waking up the world.